Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of The Left Wing. I am TJ Whitehead, powers taken, not given, joined as always by Defender of the Faith, John Cooper. How are you doing today, my friend?
Defender of what faith, TJ? I'm doing good.
The faith, John, the faith of the one true God.
I was just saying how I have not followed the news all too closely today because I've had a busy day at work, and I know things are happening, but I don't know why. I know that Cory Booker is going for the record in terms of it's not a filibuster though, so I don't know how it's going to go down the record books. I don't know if there'll be an asterisk or whatever, but I know he's doing that. I don't know what he's saying or why particularly he's doing it, but it's cool that he's doing it. Have you been following this today? Because I've just been getting like updates on.
So I've just seen stuff here and there about it. Let me pull it up here because for those of you who don't know, like John's talking about, Cory Booker is doing a quasi filibuster. It's
a filibuster in everything but name. Like it's the same thing as a filibuster. There's just no reason for it.
You want to explain to the good
honestly
folks?
Like high level pettiness.
Yeah, you want to explain to the good folks what a filibuster is, John?
So a filibuster is when and back in the day you had to physically filibuster. And what that means is you had to just talk, because if you have control of like the speaking grounds of the Senate, you get to just talk until you cede the floor. And so back in the day, senators, if there was a big vote coming up, they would just keep talking so the vote couldn't happen. Nowadays, there's the 60 vote filibuster majority. It kind of just happens automatically a lot of the times now. But what Cory Booker's, and that's what makes what Cory Booker's doing so cool. This is just straight up for the love of pettiness. Like he's just doing this to make a point and make a statement about how crazy shit is. And I haven't even like heard details like what the messaging is on it, and I don't even think it matters. It matters that he's standing up personally and doing something, which is what I've been calling for, TJ, this entire time, where it's like there's never been more political capital be gained in the Senate for Democrats right now. Just step up and lead. And Cory Booker's doing it. Kudos to him.
Yeah, and right now, Cory Booker is at 22 hours in the speech. He has been standing and talking in the Senate floor for 22 hours. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker held the Senate floor with a marathon speech that lasted all night and Tuesday afternoon. Oh, wait, did he stop? It says held. That's more than 22 hours later, the 55-year-old senator, former football tight end. Why does that matter? Why did they add a former football tight end in here? Was plainly exhausted but still going. It was a remarkable show of stamina, among the longest in Senate history, as Democrats tried to show their frustrated supporters that they are doing everything possible to contest Trump's agenda. Is it over yet? Because
I see a live stream like on YouTube right now.
It's still going? Okay. All right.
I mean, he's talking live on this live stream.
Wow. Yeah, so I don't know if he broke the record yet. I thought the record was somewhere around 20 hours, and that was Strom Thurmond back in the civil rights era, probably. But all right, so I am cautious about this filibuster by Cory Booker because, yeah, it's something, I guess, but it's also nothing. That's what gets me about this, that the way that this filibuster, or light filibuster, whatever you want to call it, one way I would have a lot of respect for it is if this is a coordinated plan by Democrats. Like the second Cory Booker stops talking, someone else gets up there and does the same thing. And this just keeps rolling.
We don't know if that's not the case yet.
If that's the case. In
fact, if there's any Senate Democrats listening to this right now, you could keep this filibuster going for the rest of the Trump administration.
Exactly.
There is no rule that says you cannot.
You can't. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, and that's because what people see this as kind of like a cynical ploy in a lot of ways is that this conveniently doesn't hold up any votes. It doesn't hold up any confirmations. There's been plenty of time to do this. Any senator could have done this any damn time they felt like it, and they haven't. And Cory Booker decides to do it when there's nothing at stake. And yeah, it's performative and it raises awareness and stuff, but I hate to be that's not the right way to do this, but I mean, there's ways you could wait until there's an actual vote going on and actually gum up the works here. Now, I'll eat my words. If the Democrats do have a coordinated effort to keep this ball rolling, I will be standing up and cheering. I'll think it's fantastic. But right now, it seems to be like Cory Booker making himself look good when he's not really stopping anything at all.
So I I agree with everything you said individually, but I
Mhm.
disagree in principle
Okay.
because you're 100% right. It's not like this is some sort of coordinated thing, but I
As far
think
as we
that's
know.
as far as we know. And it could be good if it's like it really doesn't matter to me, is what I'm saying, because I don't think they're. You could make the point, you can make the criticism that this should have happened earlier when they were confirming whatever, when they're confirming nominees for the cabinet. But I think back then, Chuck Schumer was in charge and didn't allow that sort of thing.
Okay.
And Democrats fell in line.
Mhm.
And this, to me, is an example of a Democrat saying, fuck this. I'm just going to do something.
Okay.
I'm going to win the attention economy. I'm going to put the spotlights on us and what we are saying and what we are doing. And I think that's a positive thing, regardless of what coordinated efforts are around it, or if it's the maximization of this opportunity, because fuck it, we ball should just be the strategy. Like, if you can do something, do it. And if you just keep doing all of those sort of things, individuals just keep doing these things, it does gum up the works. It does create tension. It does, as I've said so many times on this show, show the American people that this is not normal. You are acting abnormally just for the sake of it has value in and of itself. And would I like to continue to see more things like this and coordination and more strategic adjustments? Sure. But at the same time, there isn't actually many strategic things that can actually be done at this moment. So,
Oh no, did John freeze up on us, or is it me? Someone comment, can you hear me or can you hear John? Let me know. Well, in case you can't hear me, I was just saying. Oh, there we go. Are you
I'm back,
John?
TJ.
Great,
My
cool.
internet
All
cut
right,
off
cool.
for a second, but I was just
All
saying there's no drawback in this strategy in my mind. There's no loss to be had. So go for it.
I see that. The only thing is that it's going to look very suspicious whenever there's some sort of vote on the Senate floor next month saying, all right, we're going to vote if we're going to hunt the homeless for sport. And Cory Booker doesn't do this. Now, if he does, like, okay, you've already shown that you are more than willing to spend one entire day out of your life to talk on the Senate floor for self-aggrandizing, but are you going to do it to stop legislation? Now, once again, I hope that's what happens. I hope that this is part of an effort to say, hey, we're in the minority here in the Senate. We have limited power, and we can do two things at once here. We can gum up the works when there's actually works to be gummed up and not just a random day when nothing's happening. And we can expose the filibuster for the absurdity that it is. Mm-hmm. And I honestly, if the filibuster, it's not going to happen, I don't think, but if the filibuster is nuked due to this performative shit, I will stand up and cheer. I would love that. Now, that could be the game too. I don't know. But for right now, I'm withholding a verdict on this because it seems more performative than not. That's just how I see it.
See, to me, it's kind of like when your team comes out of the gate and just like the other team puts up 21 straight points, and then you get like your first down.
Yeah. And
you're just like, fuck yes. Yeah, it doesn't really mean anything unless you get more first downs and start getting back in the game. But it's still exhilarating to see. You still want to. It makes me want to build off this momentum, and I hope it inspires others to do the same. Because to me, it's less about what Cory Booker is actually doing and more about what he is signaling to the American people, to Democratic constituents, that we should all collectively be doing, and that's what matters to me about it.
Go ahead. It's absolutely a step up. I can't go. It's absolutely a step up. Yes, true.
Mm-hmm. And one last note on Cory Booker before we move on. I just have to say, I don't know how much Keegan-Michael Key has to like spend on lobbying efforts, but there's nothing better for his career than Cory Booker to become president of the United States. That would be, every time I look at Cory Booker, I'm like, that's a Keegan-Michael Key character.
Yeah, he'd be a great Cory Booker. Key and Peele, they're great at a lot of different roles, but when someone like looks exactly like you, boom, come on, man! Like God doesn't hand out these opportunities too often. You have to take a lot.
It's like Maya Rudolph and
Kamala Harris. Yeah, exactly.
Just perfect. Like bring out the Brinks truck.
Absolutely perfect. And Zeke says, "Oh, for real, awesome! That would be dope if they could do it the entire time." Yeah, listen, if you look at the rules in the United States Constitution for the government, you would be shocked how many like they talk about how the Constitution was this document that was written by God himself and brought down by Gabriel to, John Adams and James Madison. And no, what it is a patchwork effort by a bunch of, quasi aristocrats desperate to keep the slave states from leaving. And just like, a bunch of patchwork held together by bubble gum and duct tape. And there's a bunch of loopholes in it. And one of the loopholes is, if you just talk, they can't do anything, which is strange. Like that, I don't think that should exist at all, that we're always against it. And it wasn't really used that often until I think the Civil War and then the Civil Rights era. That's when you had the big spikes in the filibuster. But like John was mentioning, as poisonous as the filibuster is and as anti-democratic as the filibuster and the Senate itself is, at least it required the senators to do something. It required the senators to do what Cory Booker is doing right now, is I'm going to talk until I'm physically incapable of talking anymore and inconvenience everyone. And hopefully my problem will go away. Now they don't even have to do that. Now that it's a write down piece of paper, I'm filibustering and no one can vote. If the filibuster does exist, it shouldn't. They should at least make them do what Booker's doing and, make them do some work for it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. All right, we have this is our Q&A show, everyone. So if you have questions for us, make sure to drop it in the comments. I saw Mark said, sorry, guys, he has something and will add little to the show. Don't worry, Mark, you barely do.
Nice.
But did you guys read the New York Times editorial calling for the Democrats to move to the center? I saw several things about different New York Times articles, and some of them mentioned Democrats moving to the center. Do you know what he's talking about specifically?
No, I haven't heard that. I'm not surprised by that, but I haven't heard it. No.
So without speaking to the specific article, because I haven't read the article, but I do know vaguely what you're referring about. I think any Dems need to move in this direction. I'm not buying it, because I don't think anyone understands what the directions are. Like when people say Dems need to move to the center, what the fuck do you mean? Because it could mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
And if you're saying Dems need to care less about language policing, if you say that's a move to the center, I agree with you. If you say Dems need to completely abandon trans rights, I disagree with you. I think Tim Walz, he had an excellent quote. Let me pull it up because I threads it. But Tim Walz said, it was something along the lines of that. I'm not pulling it up right now, but it was something along the lines of, we didn't lose because we didn't move center enough. We lost because we let the other people define where the center is and what we stand for. We need to stand for a clear message and convince the American people that we are right. And that is the kind of thing on the process level, which I think is a lot better advice than go to the center, because no one agrees on what that is. What the Democrats need to do is decide what they believe in and fight for it. And it doesn't really matter what it is. Look at what Trump has done with the Republicans. Say what you will, whether you agree with what Trump has done or not. Okay, let's put that on the table for another day. If you look at the Republican Party of 2016, and you were to say, in 2024, the Republican presidential nominee is going to run on a platform of mass deportations, massive deficit spending, and denying the results of the 2020 Democratic election, you would lose your mind. You would never believe that would be the Republican Party platform, but it is, because people saw Donald Trump fighting for what he believed in and believed in him because of it. And I think that's what the Democrats are missing more so than any direction. I've said about Tim Walz 1,000 times. There are Democrats in Congress who I have more policy overlap with than Tim Walz. We disagree on quite a few issues, but I would run through a wall for that man. Mm-hmm. I believe that he's going to do the thing that he believes is right, and he's going to get it done. I can't say that about literally any other politician besides Donald Trump.
That's true with how people view politics, and I get really annoyed when people say that, you know, we need to move left, we need to, or move right, or we need to move to the center, because like you said, those are meaningless phrases. And I actually went and pulled up the the article that Mark mentioned here. Now, it's a New York Times article, so, you know, I can't actually read the entire thing, but I'll read as much as I can. And it says, can the Democratic Party as currently constituted move to the center? After the 2024 elections, many sympathetic...
Who wrote it, TJ?
This is a guy named Thomas Edsel. I'm not familiar with him.
Okay, I'm not.
Many sympathetic politicians and commentators made it quite clear that they would like the party to do so. It will be an uphill struggle. There is evidence that the process of moderation has the potential to result in unintended adverse consequences. Over the past 3 decades, according to Pew Research, the share of the Democratic electorate made up of voters with high school degrees or less, shorthand in polling for the working class, has fallen from 55% to 25%. Over the same time period, the share of Democrats with college degrees has grown from 21 to 45%. These widely recognized changes in levels of educational attainment have coincided with an ideological shift. Gallup found in 1994, 48% of Democrats described themselves as moderate. 25% said they were very liberal or liberal, and 25% say were the conservative or very conservative. In 2024, Gallup reported that a solid majority of Democrats, 55%, said they were liberal or very liberal, 34% said they were moderate, and 9% described themselves as conservative or very conservative. This actually, that's all I can read, so I can only go off what I can see right there. This is exactly what John was saying and why this is so frustrating. Those categories are essentially meaningless. If you ask your average person, hey, do you consider yourself very liberal? They're going to say no. If you ask your average person to consider themselves very conservative, they're going to say no. People have an aversion to be seen as extreme, especially to some pollster or some stranger. People aren't going to be out there saying, yes, I am on the furthest end of the acceptable bounds of political discourse in this country. No one's going to say that. And also, if someone says they're moderate, no one can tell you what the fuck that means. Does moderate mean that, oh, I happen to hold the center position of all the major political topics in the United States? Or does moderate mean I have a mix of some liberal ideas and some conservative ideas, and good luck guessing which ones are which? It doesn't mean anything. So it's kind of like those polls that come out every election where it says, do you believe the country is going in the right direction? No matter what it says, it doesn't tell you what the person actually wants. So anyone saying that the Democrats need to become more moderate or more liberal isn't helping you out unless they specifically say these are the policies you need to follow. And I see a lot less of that. It's just pontificating with no real substance.
Yeah, and so that's pretty much it when it comes to should the Democrats be more center? No. Like that, I would say, should they try to get closer to, if that's what you mean by that, if you mean should they adopt policies that are more similar to the Republican Party platform, and it just screams to me no. And I really don't understand why anyone thinks that way. It's such a weird, the only way it starts to make sense is if you only consider politics on a linear spectrum. Of like, you think the American electorate is at -1 on the scale and Democrats were at +1 and they should move to +0.5 to get close like that. But that's not how actual ideology or voting works. And I think Joe Rogan is the obvious example of this, where in 2020 he was a Bernie bro and in 2024 he was a Trump supporter. That you need to identify the ideological overlap between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump in order to acquire those people. And none of that overlap exists within moderate centrist positions. It just doesn't. I think everyone can agree on that. And yet we'll still talk about should they move center as if that's like some sort of prescriptive policy decision. Something else Mark brought up was the abundance agenda. Have you seen anything about that? The abundance
the book that
conversation?
Was it Ezra Clarence? I don't read books. We've been over
so
this many times.
I don't read many books either, but I do read some books. And I'm actually very interested in it. I might read this one. I probably won't because it's one of those books where I'm pretty sure I know exactly what it says already. And I don't just say that as in like I'm smart. I say that because he himself has said that he was inspired to write it by another book, which I have read, called Fully Automated Luxury Communism. And I very much agree with what Ezra Klein is saying, and a lot of people on the left. I'll give you the TLDR of the discourse right now. Is that this is basically YIMBYism, the book, right?
Okay.
Like this is deregulate to build more, build faster. Not necessarily deregulate like environmental protection stuff, but like the things that are preventing us from building more. Let's take a look at it and see how much, like, what is the ROI we're getting on this? Is it really worth it to have these regulations? And build, specifically with housing, and then taking that kind of ethos and applying it to all of our policies of what can we accomplish, what physical things can the Democratic Party accomplish to make lives tangibly better in a relatively fast amount of time that can actually be seen within an election cycle, and it seems pretty straightforward to me.
Okay.
And there is discourse of leftists like hating on it because they're like, I don't know, degrowth accelerationists or whatever. They don't want they only want to have social housing and publicly owned housing and don't want any market solutions, which I think is just kind of a dumb thing on its face. Like, I understand what they're saying. I would prefer to have both, but if I can have one or the other or neither, I'm going to have one of them because we need to solve the housing crisis. And you can't just jump there without proving that you can solve it through whatever methods are available to you. So anyway, that's my thoughts, Mark. If you wanted my thoughts on the abundance agenda, it is, if you like it, I hate to break it to you, that's inspired by a book about communism. But I'll leave it at that.
You shouldn't have said that, John. You should have asked if he liked it and then drop that on him to see. So he can't.
I trust Mark to be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
About what he likes and what he doesn't like. Mark has never been one to weasel out of positions.
That's true.
Marcus just is wrong a lot of the time.
And Marcus said stuff far too embarrassing for me to think he'd lie about. Yeah. So also which I love what you mentioned about the overlap between Sanders and Trump and how none of that is middle ground. And it's also, it's so frustrating because what the middle ground centrist American is different for every American. Everybody thinks that they are reasonable. They think, people to my left are crazy and people to my right are crazy. I am the only sensible person in this country. That's what everybody thinks, which is why advocacy of what you believe is so powerful. Because if you guys remember the Tea Party were not a majority, but they acted like it. They acted like what they were saying is what everybody believed. All the real Americans want this. And it worked. It got us Sarah Palin first and then Donald Trump. Took them a few times, but they got exactly who they wanted. We can do this with sensible policy as well. There's no reason we can't.
Yeah. Go to Colby first.
I can't tell you how many people say that Kamala campaigned too much on identity politics and especially on trans issues. I must have missed where she spoke at all about them and just let it happen. So this is true. Like, I'm not denying what you're saying is incorrect. But I think what people mostly mean isn't like what the Harris campaign did, or honestly, even what Democratic politicians do. It's just like what the left movement is seen as and how their communication and what seems important to them. Now, once again, trans issues is correct because trans issues is like exclusively a conservative issue. Like the people who are always complaining and bitching and making shit up about it, I saw a chart talking about this, like online discourse from right-wing pages and left-wing pages. Right-wing pages bring up trans stuff 10 times more easily because they're the ones terrified of it and thinking that Satan is trying to change your kid's genital. Like, they're the ones who care. But as far as the left wing in general, not the show, but the actual movement, left wing in general, is the Tim Walz stuff. Like, say stuff that makes sense to people. Don't. That article mentioned that there's more and more college graduates in liberal circles because we're more educated. I mean, that's just kind of, the more educated you are, the less conservative you become. There is an inverse relationship between the two. It's
wild that this has always existed this way, and it doesn't bother conservatives at all.
Always, yes. And here's the thing, even amongst conservatives, the more educated conservatives are less conservative than less educated ones. Like, the ones who actually go to school, the ones who make it past 8th grade, they are always less conservative. You will never see that the other way around. But they don't seem to know. Oh, that's weird. It's a conspiracy, like everything else. Like, the professors, they are the ones telling my kids to have empathy and showing them charts and math that trickle-down economics doesn't work. But go ahead, John. We're going to pull up.
So I wanted to address Hugh's comment here, because he said any comment on Elon Musk bribing Wisconsin voters to sign his petition to try to influence the state Supreme Court election, which Elon claims the fate of Western civilization hinges on. First of all, there's a couple comments. One, it's very funny that he said that, like a Wisconsin Supreme Court special elect. I don't care how important it is in reality. The fate of Western civilization will never. I will take this to. I will bet my life on it. The fate of our civilization will never hinge on a Wisconsin Supreme Court election. It's a very funny statement to make, but it is a very illegal thing to do as well. And for the life of me, TJ, I don't understand. I'm pulling my hair out here. It's Wisconsin Democrat governor.
Republican.
Is, right? Republican. Okay. Well, whatever. Take it anyway. It doesn't even fucking matter. Any fucking Democrat, get a fucking cop to agree with you and just go fucking arrest him. I don't he gets let out. The DA doesn't press charges. Okay, who gives a shit? Make that the fucking news story about the illegal thing that he did and how the government is refusing to prosecute him for it. I don't understand why. And if the worst case scenario, it doesn't work, and you made Elon's day miserable. Like what? It seems like a no lose situation to me, TJ.
I don't know if it's a no lose situation because first, like, the legality of it is questionable, right? Like, for those of you wondering what we're talking about,
all the fucking time. We literally sent someone to El Salvador, and we're gonna get it that he isn't fucking did anything wrong. It was an administrative error, and we can't get him back.
You know, the crazy thing
Why can't we do that to Elon?
The crazy thing is, like, we're going to get to that story in a bit. When I wrote that headline, there's like 4 people this applies to. There are 4 people already who their deportation is like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. But we'll get to that. But the reason, so what we're talking about here is Elon Musk, he did this during the Trump campaign where he offered $1 million prize to people if they signed a petition for some legislation or whatever. And now he's offering another $1 million for people who what was it like? If you vote in this election, I'll give you $1 million, or if you do something,
so like he said that.
Mm-hmm.
No, he said something on Twitter, and I forget exactly the details.
Yeah,
this is all a big much ado about nothing story. Like, as much as I just said what I did, nothing's going to happen about it. So I just haven't dedicated my time to figuring out the details of it because it's just nothing's going to happen. But like, yeah, he tweeted something that was very fucking illegal. And it was something along the lines of vote and you could get $1 million or something like that. And they later revised the statement to say people who signed the petition to have the special election
are
entered into a sweepstakes to win $1 million, which is legal, but that's not the original statement that Elon made.
Yeah. And so the reason I say that it's not like a risk-free thing is that arresting a billionaire is no small matter, right? I mean,
why not? What do you mean it's no small matter?
Well, it isn't because, that's why billionaires shouldn't exist because billionaires are essentially above the law. What's he
going to do? Resist arrest? Fuck him up? Kill him?
If you're the cop, that would be funny. If you're the cop or you're the magistrate, you're the judge, you're the governor. Elon Musk has unlimited amount of money to make your life miserable. Like he could find any ways to get you in jail with all that money. That I see why people hesitate on prosecuting billionaires because your life is at risk, and so is the life of the people you love or your businesses. I mean, he's essentially the power of a small country or a medium.
One true believer cop. One true believer. There's got to be one cop who's about to retire that really fucking hates this guy and that you can find to go arrest him. There's thousands of them, DJ. There has to be one.
Yeah. Someone do a Walter White here and just kind of, you're at the end of your days, do something good for humanity, unlike Walter White. Mark said, I do like it, inspired by communism, perhaps, but Stalin got the trains to run on time, right? Mark, you're talking about Adolf Hitler. He got the trains to run on time. That's the phrase.
It's very funny that the thing Mark likes the most is the authoritarianism of the USSR. That's the part that he liked the most.
What is like, what? I have never heard he was a Hitler. Stalin made the trains run on time. That was Hitler. And I don't know. It's like this kind of reminds me whenever people try to say that Hitler. Well, Hitler was a socialist, right? It's the Nationalist Socialist Party of Germany. I was like, so you think North Korea is a democratic republic too? You think names just automatically assign what it is? And it's like also let's say Hitler was a socialist. I mean, he wasn't. I mean, there's a famous poem, I believe, that addresses the first people Hitler came for, and they were him, apparently, the socialists. But it's like, all right, let's say Hitler was a socialist. Believe it or not, my primary problem with Hitler was not his economic policy. Okay, that is not the reason that I'm talking about how bad Hitler was. It wasn't because of financial shit he was doing. It was the murdery and discrimination shit that he was doing. That seems a little bit worse. So why do I get the feeling that these $1 million gifts are staged? I don't know if they're staged or not. Like the guy I saw who won the last one was a dude you could look up. He was the head of like the college Republicans of Wisconsin, which is exactly the type of person who signed up for this. So I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not.
I would like the value of jipping the $1 million is less than the potential PR.
It'd be better for him to spend
if the person made a big deal about it. Like the cost benefit analysis in there, you might as well just give the $1 million.
I agree. No, Wisconsin is a Democratic. Wait a minute. I thought the Wisconsin governor signed that thing with the school lunches or the education fund, or maybe they have a new one this last election. I thought that. All right. The attorney general,
Democrat Tony Evers, Wisconsin governor. He kind of looks like a turtle.
Okay. The attorney general tried to stop it, but I guess it was too late and he didn't do it correctly somehow. But hopefully, okay. I was mistaken on that. All right.
It's still going, by the way.
Still going.
I have it on mute, but he's pretty emphatic. I can't believe he's still going.
Well, like we were saying, he might as well go for the record. I don't know if he has it already, but
yeah, like we have a lot of drugs now that they didn't have back when Ron Thurmond did it. Just keep them going. Just whatever they gave to Patrick Mahomes at halftime of the Super Bowl against the Eagles that he won when he came back out on a broken leg and just worked this up. Give that to Cory Booker. Just let's keep this going as long as we can. Why stop at 24 hours? Why not go for 48? Why run the clock when you can throw the dagger?
Yeah, I agree. Colby says, just heard about this Hitler guy. He sounds like a real jerk. I believe that is a Norm Macdonald quote. And that is fantastic.
It is a Norm Macdonald.
That's fantastic. And Kyle says, you guys aren't streaming on Instagram. You know what? We didn't. We had time too. We started the show early. We both.
I've kind of like stopped because I don't see the value in it. It starts off. There's a couple people that I can't engage with the Instagram community while doing this, so it's just like it just feels like I'm streaming there for no reason. That's why. Kyle, if you want us to stream on Instagram, please tell me why, because it's not that I like am against it. It's just I am not convinced that it matters at all.
That's true. And Kyle, you watch this stream because this is the one you comment on.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe he does both. Kyle's a super fan.
Well, because I've had this happen too, where I stream on Instagram and I go back and say, people ask questions. I don't even see them. And I feel kind of bad about that. But also, listen, I know this is just, millennial bitching about small issues and everything. But the way StreamYard is set up, streaming to Instagram is a pain in the ass. And I guess pain in the ass, it is a minor pain. You have to do like 4 clicks instead of 1. And I don't feel like it. I don't feel like doing it, right? I wish it was like everything else where I could just assign it, but nope, it's a whole thing.
I get paid to click things all day. I don't need to come home and click 4 more things.
Yeah. And Huge Ass says, I don't know. It's kind of funny that the current record was set by a guy literally arguing against civil rights. Funny, embarrassing, I mean, but that should probably be highlighted in the history books. Yeah.
I think that's another point on the side of this is a good thing, is that it immediately brings up Strom Thurmond as a thing that you are defeating. And so, like, just the storyline writes itself, it makes it a little bit easier for the newspapers to write the story that you want them to write.
Yeah. For those of you guys wondering who we're talking, Strom Thurmond was a Dixiecrat back in the 50s, one of the huge anti-civil rights guy. And he was a senator until I believe the early 2000s. He died.
He's the guy that Joe Biden worked with on the busing, right?
The busing shit and everything. Yeah. Strom Thurmond was he was a Democrat back in the 50s. And then after the civil rights era, he was a Republican. What could have happened? What could have happened in the 1960s that would make a Democrat become a Republican, John? I don't know. I just I've been scouring the history books and I can't figure out why.
People like just don't understand political. I will also say this, TJ. I think that's also a good historical parallel because I think we're about to hit a political realignment. I think we're hitting a major political realignment because whatever happens post-Trump I don't think it can really continue on the track that it's currently going. Like in any direction that you want to take this. If you want to say, let's play out the war game where he goes full Hitler, starts a world war, it does a terrible bunch of, more crimes against humanity than America usually does. Like, cool. That is obviously unsustainable and will clearly lead to political realignment. But then let's say he just kind of like, this is the status quo for the next 4 years, unless there is an heir apparent. Someone's going to have to like take the reins, and that's going to fail miserably. One thing we know about this administration, or two things. One, Trump doesn't give a shit about anyone but Trump and will not help anyone take the reins after him. And two, this isn't exactly a well-oiled, efficient machine that has like all of its I's dotted and T's crossed and like, super detailed battle plans going into things. Like, they're not going to succeed in that, most likely. So you're going to have a massive fight on the right, a massive power vacuum, and you're going to see people jumping ship on different sides. You're already starting to see it again. Like with Bernie just going out and doing his own thing. I know Bernie has gone out and done his whole thing this entire time, but there's a lot more critical mass of support. There's never been lower approval rating of the Democratic Party. If there's going to be a political realignment, now is the time.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I would say for years now, I've been thinking that a political realignment is coming, not for the reason it ended up. I thought it'd be something totally different, but it's especially with minorities in particular, that Democrats have always said that, well, we're going to wait on the time to do our work for us, that eventually America is going to be a minority white nation. White people will be a plurality, and we'll secure all those minority votes. And those will push us over the edge. That ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. Like, it is true. Like, every minority group still votes majority Democrat, but the margins aren't as strong as they used to be. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that has to do with the fact, like we mentioned earlier with Democrats, it's not so much left, moderate, and right as it is working class, or not, not working class, but college educated and non-college educated. Mm-hmm. And there are more and once again, the less educated you are, the more likely you are to be conservative. I can't stress this enough. And so, unfortunately, most people do not have college degrees. And so when Democrats speak in the language and have the affectation, and let's be real, the cultural mores of the professional managerial class, that's not going to reflect what you're. Now, that doesn't mean that you're at, like, a lot of these folks aren't Nazis, right? It's like they don't have these super far right opinions. But whenever you hear someone talk to you, like you're say you're a regular working class, like white person or minority, and you hear someone say that, oh, well, black people can't be racist. You're like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? You don't know what racism academically means. You weren't taught that. And you know what racism colloquially means, which is like prejudice. Like, well, yeah, of course, black people can be prejudiced. And you start to lose them. And they're like, okay, well, sure, the Republicans seem crazy, but the Democrats are not talking any sense. That's where the separation is coming. And if Democrats continue their affectation this way, they're going to lose more and more people. And then you have young men, which are going solidly right for a lot of other reasons. I think that the way the Democrats and the Republicans present themselves is going to necessarily change sooner rather than later. So who knows what the political map's going to look like in a few years.
That brings up a good thought in my mind that I hadn't considered before. And it's that it's bad political strategy to try and position your messaging to the higher educated, higher income part of your party, because the higher educated, higher income part of your party will fall in line because they understand, generally speaking, the broad strokes of the coalition building. Like, they understand that you're not going to lose your college educated, high income Democrats in the suburbs to the Republicans ever. Like, especially under Trump, like, it's just not going to happen, right? But you are going to lose your working class, poor, uncollege educated minorities because they're susceptible to things like the church. They're susceptible to a lot more things that appeal to them, and they don't quite have the academic understanding of why it's actually bad for them. And so by appealing to the rich people in your party, you're alienating the poor people. because they do have this kind of class consciousness, and they hear you talk this corporatized bullshit speak, and they're like, that's not for me. This person doesn't represent me. I know that because the people in my life who I fucking hate, who make my life miserable every day, sound exactly like that. Donald Trump, the people who sound like Donald Trump don't make my life miserable every day. Worst, I laugh at them. You know, like that, and that's the problem with messaging towards that part of your base and thinking that they're important. They're really not. And I say this as one of them, by the way. I'm a college-educated, relatively high income compared to the average American of my age group Democrat, and I don't think the Democrats should appeal to me. Like, I really don't. I think it's really stupid of them if they try to appeal to me. I want them to do my policy anyway, because that's a different thing. But they shouldn't be trying to get my vote.
Yeah, and it's not entirely their fault either, because it's kind of like a feedback loop in that the only people who vote are people in that class, honestly, or the majority of people who vote are going to be like that. The more money you have, the more likely you are to vote. Mm-hmm. And the less money you have, the more likely politics are to screw you over, but you don't get involved because you don't think it'll change anything. And a lot of times that's true. And so people just kind of give up on it. So when Democrats see that, if you're looking at the voter rolls and you see, okay, so this high income neighborhood had a 75% voter engagement rate, and a low income neighborhood had a 35. Of course, I'm going to go after the 75. Like, why would I waste time talking to people who aren't going to show up? It's a weird feedback loop that happens, and it's to solve it. It involves, breaking out of your comfort zone and being innovative, trying stuff, and also not, being subservient to either the donors. That actually helps out a lot
for
too.
Anyone who isn't following what TJ's saying, I'm going to dumb this down into a sports analogy. What the Democrats are doing is they're going for the game time stats. They're going for just who has the highest stats. Oh, the college educated white people in the suburbs, they vote at the highest rates. We're going to message to them. What they're not going for is wins above replacement. They need to be going for the guy who gives them more wins above replacement. They need to be going for the person at the premium position who could make or break whether they win or not, versus the guy who's just putting up empty stats. And that's what the fucking white liberal college educated Democrats are doing, is that they are going to vote for you no matter the fucking what. Like, they're not going to vote for Trump. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, they're going to vote at a higher clip, but you're just wasting resources message to them because you already have their vote. The people who you don't have the vote of are the Joe Rogans of the world. The people you don't have the vote of are increasingly the Latino community. The people you don't have the vote of are all of these groups that you have been losing out on because Chuck Schumer said you can make it up with 2 college-educated people in the suburbs. And I hate to break it to you, but there's less of them.
Yeah, very true, very true. And speaking of Joe Rogan, let's go to old Joe and see what he had to say. I don't know if you guys before you jump to Joe Rogan, I just have to say, Polar Knight said, "Who needs Joe Rogan when we have John Cooper?" And Polar Knights, thank you very much. Hit up Spotify, see if they can get us the Joe Rogan money. Amen.
Feel that way.
Kyle, who said that?
That's Polar. That's a Twitch comment, TJ.
Okay,
we don't get too many Twitch comments.
Polar Knights. I request that you refer to him as Defender of the Faith, John Cooper. He was the Pope declared him that earlier this morning. So, all right. So I don't know if you guys have seen, but our president, Donald John Trump, is not a big fan of migration in general. Well, certain types of migration. And he has been hell-bent on getting as many people who are, paper bag colored or darker out of the country as quickly as possible. And some mistakes have been made along the way. And one Joseph Michael Rogan has some thoughts on this.
You got to get scared that people who are not criminals are getting lassoed up and deported and sent to El Salvador prisons, like that kind of shit. Because I read some story. It was Glenn Greenwald.
It was. Yeah. The gay barber guy. Yeah. It's scary, man.
Is that true? Is that story accurate?
I don't think we know.
Can you explain the story for people that don't know?
Well, from what I read, I think it was in Time magazine, Jamie, if you can pull it up, maybe we can get it accurate. But basically, with a bunch of these Agua guys, allegedly they got at least one guy who wasn't a criminal, who was just a gay barber who I think, according to the story, came here legally. And I think a human being plucked out of nowhere and ending up in a country he's never been in a maximum security prison with gang members, seems like a bad thing to happen to me.
It's horrific. It's horrific.
I don't think that should be controversial.
No, that's not controversial at all. And this is the thing, measured twice, cut once.
Mm.
Yeah.
This is kind of crazy that could be possible. That's horrific. And that's bad for the cause. Like, the cause is, let's get the gang members out. Everybody agrees. But let's not innocent gay hairdressers get lumped up with the gangs. And then, like, how long before that guy can get out? Can we figure out how to get him out? Is there any plan in place to alert the authorities that they've made a horrible mistake and correct it?
Well, if you think about it from a government perspective, and this is where I think it gets quite sinister, is once you've done that, the incentive structure is never going to be to admit that and deal with it. The incentive structure is to say nothing, to cover it up, to pretend it didn't happen. Right?
That is horrible.
So someone ends up in a black hole. But we've seen it. We've seen it in every.
Okay, I have a lot to say on this, John. I'm sure you do too. But first, I know John's going to be familiar with a little film called Casablanca. Maybe you guys aren't, but when Joe Rogan's just the amazement is like, I am shocked to discover there's gambling in this establishment. Those are the vibes that it gives me right there. Like, how could this possibly happen? And also lassoed. Joe Rogan said lassoed up. I would have guessed it was lassoed. I don't know. Maybe Joe Rogan.
It is lassoed, Joe Rogan.
Okay, all right. So I was like, Joe Rogan seems like a guy who knows about lassos.
He's just like, let me talk to my white guy over here. How do you say this? The lassoed?
Lassoed, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was like, you know cowboy shit, right? And also, I made up his middle name. Joe Rogan's middle name is James. I checked. It's not Michael. And I like when Joe Rogan said that, listen, rounding up these random barbers who have no criminal background and just shuttling them off to a gulag in El Salvador, that's bad. This shouldn't be controversial. Joe, I guarantee you it will be. I guarantee you it will be. Like, you might think, Joe Rogan, because you're a credulous rube, that of course people aren't going to defend this. This is obviously a wrong that, maybe there should be some kind of way to make sure we're deporting the right people, like due process or something. Like, maybe we should try that. But I guarantee you there'll be like, nope, it was fine. Got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. What are you going to do?
This is one of those things, TJ, where I'm just like, you are either adamantly against this or you're a fucking fascist. There's really no way that you can be okay with sending random fucking people. And again, this isn't just to jail temporarily. This is to a prison camp in El Salvador where people are tortured and regularly die forever. Like, there's no plan to get these people back. They are just there, having committed no crime. One day, they're living their life. They entered this country legally. They did everything by the book. They touch base with ICE. And again, this isn't like speculation. The gay barber is a different guy. There's another guy who the Trump administration admitted in court is there due to an administrative error. Again, There was 263 people sent, I believe. That is a shockingly large error rate. I want to put it this way. If they're planning on mass deportation of how many millions of people, a whatever it is, 0.2% error rate is tens of thousands of people, innocent people that you would be doing this to. Like, it is absurd. It's absurd. It is inhumane. It is if you are a human being and you do not stand against this, you are a piece of trash. And it's very simple. I don't like insulting people. And I guess I do like insulting people.
No,
I don't like insulting people when making political arguments because I don't find it very productive. I think it does need to be stated that if you support a policy which sends innocent people to a prison camp in El Salvador for the rest of their lives without any ability to come back on accident, you're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit if you don't care about that. If you can't put yourself in their shoes, imagine just walking down the street, being taken by ICE, never seeing your family again, and living the rest of your days cramped in a cell with 300 other men, regularly beaten, waterboarded, humiliated, and have a high degree of potential for dying. If you can't empathize with that and see that as wrong, I don't know how you can claim to still have your humanity.
Well, John, like, I mean, you know what I'm going to say here. Like, they don't care about being called piece of shit, right? Like, they revel in it. They love the fact that they can have this performative and exuberant cruelty, like saying that they wouldn't say they're fascist because fascist means bad person to them. That's all they really care about. It's like, no, this is definitely worth it to keep America safe from the barbarian horde. Like, I think they would gladly admit, yeah, if it makes me a bad person.
A lot of them would, TJ, and that's why I say
the
people who will go, like, there are people that we should be messaging to, that we should be trying, the Joe Rogans of the world. I've said, I think this actually proves my point that I've been saying. Joe Rogan is so winnable. That archetype of person, that demographic is so winnable for the Democrats. And Joe Rogan sees this story, and he's not doing enough work to, like, go down the logical train of, wow, I can't support Trump at all ever for anything because of this. He really should do that. But like, he doesn't see this story and go, good. You know what I mean? Like, that type of person is still gettable. The people who are like, who see this and go, good, fuck them. Like, they're done. Like, I have no. If I talk to someone in real life and they're supporting Trump, I'll give the benefit of the doubt. I'll try to have the conversation. If they say good to this, I will assume that they didn't know about it. And if they say good to it, fuck it, you're done. We're not. We can't be friends anymore. We're not. You're not a human in my mind that I want to talk to because you just are garbage.
Yeah, so what John was referring to is this right here. The Trump administration concedes Maryland father from El Salvador was mistakenly deported and sent to a mega prison. And the guy that the filing stems from a lawsuit over the removal of Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, a Salvadorian
it's
national.
Very unfortunate for him that his name was Kilmar.
Kilmar, a Salvadorian national who in 2019 was granted protected status by an immigration judge prohibiting the federal government from sending him to El Salvador. So this guy, all right, he immigrated to the United States, I believe, in 2011. I believe he's been here since 2011.
Yeah, no, it's been a decade. Yeah. He's a kid. I couldn't find out if that kid was an American citizen. I was looking for that.
Oh, he is a kid. Yeah, his kid is an American citizen. His kid
is
was
okay. So they deported the father of an American citizen, a 3-year-old American citizen, to a prison camp in El Salvador with no way to get him back on accident.
Yeah. I admitted that it was a clerical error. Our bad. Sorry about that, folks. And so Trump and JD Vance posted like, hey, you guys are crying for this guy. This guy is a convicted gang member. No, he is not. Like, if you look at the records, what happened is that
the administration said he wasn't. That it hurts me so much that he's just like, I know that we said this in court, but I'm just going to say something completely different, and people will believe. Go fuck yourself.
And more people are going to hear what JD Vance said than that random statement by whoever wrote that. Some pencil pushing lawyer who said, well, technically it was incorrect. No one's going to care about that. And what Vance is referring to is he was investigated for criminal activity because a criminal informant that was working with the cops, fucking pig, he said that, well, I think this guy's a member of MS-13. And the judge said, okay, well, he's a likely gang member, but, because of what this guy said, but there was no evidence proving it, none whatsoever. So little evidence, in fact, or it's a lack of evidence, that the judge granted him temporary protected status, legal status in the United States. TPS is a thing. And it says also, because he pled asylum and said, well, we can't send him back to El Salvador because there's a credible threat that he could be tortured and killed if we send him back to El Salvador. 6 years later, we send him back to El Salvador, even though the immigration judge said no. So everyone who loves to whine and complain about, well, folks need to follow the rules and they'll be okay. This guy followed the rules. This guy did everything right. He went to an immigration judge. The judge said, you're good to go. And it didn't fucking matter. And Trump rounded him up. Once again, no due process, nothing proving he was a gang member at all. Sent him to a gulag in El Salvador. And once again, I guarantee it's going to have 65, 70% approval by half the people in the nation. I mean, I can call them monsters all I want, but it's not going to change the fact that they love this cruelty. They fucking love it.
So Colby brought up, TJ, that they and this is true. They grabbed a U.S. citizen, held him for 10 hours before finally looking at his wallet that he had the entire time. I think John talked about it on Threads. Very true, Colby. I did. And it's only a matter of time before they deport a U.S. citizen.
Yep.
It's only a matter of time. It's just the only thing that has stopped it from happening already is the fact that they've stopped like the judges have stopped the deportations. If the deportations to El Salvador continue, an American citizen will be sent to El Salvador. And the same people who are currently arguing in defense of this are also going to argue in defense of that. The ones currently saying, oh, it won't ever happen to an American citizen. They're saying it right now. I had people say before this, oh, they're all, when it was first sent, they were like, oh, you're going to defend these gang members? And it's like, we don't know they're gang members. And they're like, yes, we do. And now we know that some of them weren't. Who knows how many of them were gang members, again, because they weren't given due process, and we don't know who they were. We don't know the charges against them. None of this is public information. So it is only if we do this on a large enough scale. Again, this is 200. They couldn't get 217 right. That's like, there are schools that correctly deliver 217 school lunches to each and every child every single day and never fucking mess up. And the Trump administration could not do this. Yeah. There's at least 4. That
at least 4 that we know of. Yeah.
At least 4 that we know of right now. And so it's like, what you're telling me that when they do it eventually to an American citizen, these people are going to be like, oh, wait, no, that's wrong. And also, if that's your fucking distinction, go fuck yourself too. If you care more about someone being sent to an El Salvadorian hellhole prison camp for the rest of their life for having committed absolutely no crime because they're an American citizen, go fuck yourself. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Jeremy brings up a good point here. Are we even sure one hasn't been already? Do we actually know the status of the people deported so far? Yeah, John and I brought this up last week. We don't know if no American citizens were on those planes. We don't, because once again, no trial. This is like, so everyone out there who incorrectly but loudly as usual would say, well, you're right. These rights and due process and habeas corpus stuff, that stuff doesn't apply to non-citizens. First of all, fuck you. Second, yes, it does. Third, there's a very good reason it does for such situations as this, to make sure you're not punishing or deporting people illegally. And yeah, this is just what they're asking for, and they don't care. And as far as like people's humanity, I was thinking of this video. Did you see Kristi Noem standing in front of the El Salvadorian prison?
Play the video, TJ, because
there we go, folks. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, these folks will see this and they
here at CCAT today and visiting this facility. And first of all, I want to thank El Salvador and their president for their partnership with the United States of America to bring our terrorists here and to incarcerate them and have consequences for the violence that they have perpetuated in our communities. I also want everybody to know, if you come to our country illegally, this is one of the consequences you could face. First of all, do not come to our country illegally. You will be removed and you will be prosecuted. But know that this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crimes against the American people.
Okay, so first I want to add on this this video is that Immigration Barbie here, Kristi Noem, this is kind of mailing it in as far as her outfits go, right? Like, she usually goes a little bit harder.
I'm really surprised she's not wearing body armor. Do you see all the dangerous criminals behind her?
Yeah.
Like, actually, TJ, if there was one time for her to be wearing body armor, this would actually be the one time that I'd be like, reasonable.
Yeah, it actually makes sense for you to have that protection. She is wearing, I saw something, she's wearing like a $50,000 Rolex watch in that video. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. And second, use of the human props, of course, why not? Let's just go for it. But I don't know. Third, it's just a good example of they revel in this. Trump loves his fascist porn, and Kristi Noem is all on board with this. She spent, like, I forget how many millions of dollars on a commercial on Fox News praising Donald Trump for deporting all of the immigrants. So yeah, these folks love it.
At least, TJ, I'll give this to Kristi Noem. At least she documents her crimes. You got to give it to her. She is proud of the crimes that she commits. She's like, if I'm ever in the fucking Hague, they're gonna have direct video evidence of my crimes. They're gonna pull out my book that says, "Yeah, you killed your fucking dog." That is her. That is they rebel. Someone said this. Damn, that video is sickening. Brendan says, "Damn, that video is sickening." It is sickening. To a normal person with empathy and humanity, that is a sickening video. Even if you think that those are terrible people who deserve punishment, reveling in their punishment is sickening. It is antithetical to every moral teaching in every religion. I can't express to you enough how much, if you want to watch people suffer to that degree, who you don't know, who never did anything to you, they're just a member of a group that you don't like, and you want to watch them suffer, go fuck yourself. Like that. Like I don't even get it.
Yeah. Mark says, "Oh yeah, woman is shown. You guys comment on her clothes. Listen, we
comment on people's clothes all the fucking time. This is an equal opportunity fashion show."
Well, yeah, it's true. Yeah, and also, how do I know Kristi Noem's a woman? I mean,
yeah. I've never seen her genitals.
I've never seen her genitals, and I have no. If you gave me a blood sample and a microscope, I couldn't tell you what her chromosomes look like. So I'm not gonna treat her like a woman if I don't know that she is one. That's how I see it. And so Mark
She's
actually
forced me to use her pronouns.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So also, I'm glad that Mark commented again, because I was going to show this clip and I was hoping he'd still be around for this, because John, I don't know if you saw this, but do you remember a couple weeks back we asked?
Well, I just have to say, no comments on Joe and what he wears the same goddamn thing every time.
He wore a blue fucking suit for
like, wait, it's like no comment on the fact that Big Bird's wearing the same outfit today. Like, what?
Who is KK?
I don't know. I think it was the other guy that he was talking to. I really don't know who, but he mentioned it earlier. Constantine Keeson. I didn't know who it was. But, and Mark, we didn't comment on the rest of her outfit. It was her subsequent series of outfits that got if Joe Rogan escalatingly wore more and more outrageous outfits on the shows, we would be commenting on it.
Maybe Mark's maybe Mark's not familiar with the lore of Kristi Noem, and if you've been watching Kristi Noem over the last year, especially since she's been nominated as Homeland Security, where she is, and she has increasingly gotten more and more elaborate outfits as time has gone on. She first started with the cowboy hat, and then she has the cowboy hat and the body armor. The body armor and the gun belt. It just keeps getting more and more insane. So that's why we comment on that. Not that I give a fuck anyway. I'll comment on her clothes. Fuck Kristi Noem. I'll comment on everything about her. But okay. So I know a few weeks ago, we asked Mark if he believed Elon Musk would get a man on Mars 10 years from now, even though he said we would have them there 5 years ago and we've got nothing. So Elon Musk has a brand new prediction about Mars. Let's see what he says here.
You're going to need on the order of 1 million people. Maybe 1 million tons of cargo.
So, but you think we could have 1 million people on Mars in 20 years?
Yes.
And that's it. There's more to it. But listen, it's I saw that and I could not stop laughing. For those people, we talk about all the time how Elon Musk does this. He's been doing it successfully for 15 years at least, where he says, we're going to have driverless cars in 2 years. We're going to have a man on Mars in 5 years. We're going to have a bullet train from New York to Los Angeles in 3 years. And he never delivers, not once. And people keep falling for it. I don't know. I want to shit on the guy. I do. But I got to admit, he's found a way to loop in the most gullible rubes in the nation. And when he said we'll have 1 million people on Mars in 10 years, okay, all right. He's just, why not at this point?
20 years, TJ. Let's be reasonable.
20 years. 20 years. Yeah. He just said more on that. What did he say? He said 20 years.
What are 20 years?
Yes.
And what's the technology we're missing right now? When you think about 1 million people on Mars, do we have the ability to get water, to get food, to keep them safe? I mean, what do we need to make that happen?
Well, you need to recreate the entire base of industry of Earth. So
I thought it was more interesting than that, but it wasn't.
Well, no. He does say, I think he gives another assessment.
We're here at the top of a massive pyramid of industry that starts with mining a vast array of materials, those materials going through hundreds of steps of refinement. We grow food, obviously. We grow trees. We make things out of the trees. You've got to build all that on Mars. And Mars is a hostile environment. It's it sometimes gets above zero on a warm summer day near the equator on Mars.
You're right.
First, answers only a true genius could give you. What do we need to get on Mars? Well, we need to refine minerals. They go through hundreds of steps to make sure you have finished products. We got to create things out of trees. Mars has a hostile environment. And he goes on to say, astronomy is kind of my thing, which makes it so fun to shit on Elon Musk because he's really dumb. But he said, He said, well, you know, Mars is very cold, and that Mars it's like on a warm summer day, it'll be 0 degrees at the equator. And I said, you know what? I don't think that's right. I think Mars gets to about 60 degrees on the equator. I looked it up. I was right. He doesn't even know the temperature on the planet he's trying to send us to. So, yeah,
But
that's
TJ. There is something insidious about what he said that I do think does, because yeah, he's bullshitting. We all know he's bullshitting.
well, Mark doesn't, but
No, yeah, that's true. But we need to restructure the entire industrial system of Earth in order to send 1 million people to this miserable, hostile planet. What does that sound like to you, TJ? Does that sound like anything, any historical examples you can think of people who completely restructured maybe just the industry of one nation in order to accomplish the goal of sending 1 or several or maybe 6 million people to a specific location within miserable conditions? Does that sound maybe familiar to you?
I hadn't thought about that, but he does say colonize Mars. I mean, he puts it right there. And so, yeah, it kind of fits. It kind of fits. All right.
All right. Well, I think that is our show, TJ.
Damn.
It has been time. Thank you, everyone, for watching. This has been one of our better Q&A shows.
Great show.
Thank you. All the audience engagement. Absolutely love it. Love to see some new faces here with Jeremy Russell. Haven't seen you before. Welcome. Chris, we may have seen you before. I don't know. You have a pretty generic name, but keep showing up and we will remember it. Anyway, thank you very much. We will be back on Thursday at 6:30 EST. TJ, any last words to close us out on?
Nope. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Destructo Jugo will be here. We missed them last time, but it should be a pretty fun episode. Catch you guys later.
All right. Sounds good.